Put it up. Okay, and welcome everyone to the Independence edition of the Enterprise Corner. We'll be giving everyone the opportunity to come in. Please give us a shout. I know a lot of you have been waiting for this one today. Obviously, we're coming in from a new session here. So let me put that out. So we're coming in from a new session here, and we'll be getting into. We were going to do a section on purpose and vision because that was part of the growth. But we thought it'd be great to have the theme coming in. So we're just waiting for everyone to kick up and kick in. Shadrick will be joining us very soon. And once again, as I said, welcome to everybody to today's session of, as I said, the Enterprise Corner, the Independence session, where we are going through it. Tell us where you are joining us from. Give us a name. Tell us where you're joining us from. And what you hope to discuss today. And I want to ask a simple question to everyone. I'm going to put it in the comment section. What does freedom and independence mean to you? Okay, we want to hear your thoughts. What does freedom and independence mean to you? So please answer that question in the comment section to everyone who's here. And what does freedom and independence mean to you? That's what we're sharing with everyone. So thank you very much once again to everyone. We do have Shadrick finally with us. And let's get started on today, guys. As we can see, we're all in jackets because we're trying to show that we're here in patriotic spirits for our nation in jackets. Of course, somebody will tell us we should be wearing polo shirts, but who says? But that's what the nation usually says. But remember that to everyone, tomorrow Zambia turns 58. And it's been 58 years. I know this week I was watching a YouTube video about the story of Simon Mwanawasa. And it like chronicled the story of how they started the ANC, how it may be dismantled and they had to switch it up to UNIP, and what him and KK and even the falling out they had with Nkumbula that led to that kind of separation during the first UNIP government, which obviously led to him unfortunately being sidelined. But it one of the things I really admired is what it took to make this country free. I really admired what it took to make this country free. Kenny, I think people are seeing you sideways right now. What it took to make this country free and what sacrifices. I think us as a generation, we've been born free for so long, we don't know what it took. We just were born into this. And we've known that, okay, we are free. We can go to whatever school we want. We can go to whatever institutions we want. We can do whatever we want. But we don't know what price people paid for that very freedom that we get to exercise every single day. I think the only freedom Zambians know is elections. So no, it's true. It's the only freedom I think we know as a country. We only know the freedom to choose people for elections. But when it comes to our lives, we have no understanding of how to actualize the freedoms that those who came before us fought for. And today, we want to talk about economic freedom and economic independence. And what does this mean? So I'm going to give you my two definitions so that we can get this kick-started. Well, I looked up independence. I used the Merriam-Webster dictionary because that's the old legal dictionary that they used to use. And that's obviously where they started a lot of definitions from. So when you go into the Merriam-Webster dictionary, you find two almost different definitions for freedom and independence. We tend to think about them the same. But when you think about freedom and independence, you often see them as different kinds of, as two different forms. Now, freedom is basically the ability to operate without restriction and restraint. No constraints, no stoppings, no barriers. That's freedom. So that's a person's ability to operate without any restrictions, constraints, or any form. Independence is a person who operates without a dependency on another. Okay, so I can operate freely. So the question is, you can be free without being independent, and you can be independent without being free. These actually are two separate things, but we often think they are the same, but they get to kind of work they operate very differently. I look at this. I look at the story of freedom and independence, and I ask myself the question: on a national level, do we have freedom? Do we have independence? I believe, and I'll say this, Shadrick, I believe that as a country, we have freedom and we call it independence, but I don't think we have independence. And as a result, our freedom is compromised because the two have to work together. And then I also look at, on a personal level, I think a lot of people are free, but they're not independent because of how much they look to the government for almost everything. Like
Yeah.
everything is about what the government must do for me, what the government this. I think Zambia's famous favorite statement is the government should look into this. That's the favorite statement I think I've heard of most Zambians whenever they're looking at an issue in their lives. When there's something wrong in society, no, the government must look into this and deal with it. Not I must see a problem and deal with it. So I think at a national level, we have embraced freedom where you're not restricted from doing things, but we have gotten to the point where we haven't really embraced independence. And we think of independence as elections, the ability to vote, but we don't think of independence as a daily thing. So I'm going to give you a very simple outlook of independence. In financial advisory, we have, for everyone who wants to pay attention, we have 5 levels of wealth. I think Kenya has just chosen to stay sideways today. We have what are called 5 levels of wealth, but there are 8 main ones. But when I say 5 levels of wealth, there are really 8 levels of money. But the first level of wealth is what I call stability, when a person can meet their needs. When a person has enough money coming in to meet their needs. The second level is called protection, when you've got enough money to protect yourself from 5 years of things going wrong. Then you've got security, when you can meet your basic needs. Then sorry, these are 6 actually, but we added the next one. Then you've got what's it? You got security, where you can meet your basic needs. You can secure yourself, but you're still not free to do as you please. Then you've got freedom, which means you can live life unrestricted. But independence is actually a level higher than freedom, because independence means you're not restricted, but you are also, because a chicken can roam free. You know that. A chicken can
Yeah.
actually roam the backyard freely. That's why we call them free range chickens. But it's still dependent on the man on the it's still
Yeah.
dependent on the owner of
Yeah.
that area, the one who's going to slaughter it to feed it. So it's free
Yeah.
to move around, but dependent on the farmer. So have you noticed that in its freedom, it doesn't stray far from the farmer? Chickens don't stray far from the farmer because of their dependency. So people have actually understood, and this was a beautiful analogy that I understood about the new movement, is that though we have our freedom, they made sure they called it independence. Though we have our freedom, what they've given us is freedom without independence. We're not independent of the global economy. We're not independent of our colonials. We're dependent on everyone. So I think as a people, we haven't gotten to that point where we're independent. And we'll go to the purposes of these things. But I believe as people that you must separate the difference, because freedom is the ability to move unrestricted, just like a village chicken. A village chicken is free to move around anywhere in the backyard. But because it's dependent on somebody, it chooses not to move around very far. But when you are free and independent, you're like a wild animal. You can go wherever you want. A lion is free and independent because it does not depend on someone to feed it. It finds its own food and it's free to roam wherever it is. But a lion that's in a zoo, and I remember there was a picture put up once of a lion in a zoo and a lion outside. I know I've done a long intro here, but it asks, which one would you rather be? There was this lion on a hill and a lion in a zoo. And they said, this one in the hill has got free healthcare, it's got a free bed, it's given 3 meals a day, but it has to accept a cage. While the other one is free roaming, but it has to find. So the question is, what do you want as people? Do you want the freedom, just freedom, or do you want independence where you choose how your life goes? Because one is about barriers, the other one is about independent agency, individual agency to make choices. That's my choice. And welcome to everyone on this conversation about this. Shadrick, I know that we've gone in long, but let's talk today about the beginning of freedom and independence at a national and personal level. And I've given my thoughts on it.
Wow, fantastic. So you've given a very good analogy, and I would like to go back to to audit, partly because in audit there's a statement called independence. And independence is extremely one of the most important concepts about auditors. As an auditor, we're expected to be independent, but not just independent on paper, but independent in behavior as well. All right. So what that means, it means that if the shareholders, the people that have hired you to come and audit their company, they suspect even a bit that you're not being independent, your opinion as an auditor is as good as useless. This is why it is not a good idea for you, the auditor, to be found eating in Shima with the directors of the company you're auditing. Not that it's a bad thing, but because the owners of the business, the shareholders, would think that you've been compromised. You're not independent. All right. So independence has got to be seen in your behavior, not on documents. All right. So now, when we look at our situation as Zambia, Zambians, we have the freedom. All right. We have the freedom to move around, but we don't have the independence that requires that we need to be empowered, to be less dependent on the government, less dependent on CDF, less dependent on politicians. This is why even our institutions, they have the freedom to make decisions, to issue statements, but they lack the independence to be able to decide on their own. Now, in accounting, Munyumba and Ken, you're gonna find this very interesting, partly because we say independence also means being able to decide without any undue influence, right? Without anybody coming through any invisible hand. If you see our institutions in this country, they have the freedom to issue statements, but they lack the independence to act on their own. All right. And in the near past, the nation has seen with sadness the tale of events in Kabushi and Kwacha. We are not politicians, but we can all see that that is a total, expression of the lack of independence in our institutions. So yes, we are free. We have the freedom, but we have the independence. No way. We have no independence. We are far from it. We are still lagging. This is why anybody can just wake up and begin to ask what to do. We clap for them because we lack that independence to do things for ourselves. The time we start being independent in our behavior, all right, being independent in how we source for finance, being independent in how we invest, then you're going to say we have the independence. Right now, let's look at our minds. Our own minds, we are still struggling to run our own minds because someone else has a grip on our minds. We don't have the economic independence that is required for us to push our production and to create the jobs that we need. So I think, Numba, you're right when you say a chicken has got the freedom to move around the yard, roam around the yard, but it's dependent upon the farmer. Because once the farmer is going to get that chicken and slaughter it, that's where we are, Zambians. We have the freedom to make statements, but look at where we are. It's like the chicken and the farmer. We are like Zambia and the IMF, Zambia and the World Bank, all right? We are like roaming around, but anytime these guys can just put a grip and then we are done. Done.
So China, Zambia and China.
Just China.
Everyone, yeah. It's anyone who has control over Zambia, South Africa. Anyone can just say, this is where you're going.
Yeah.
And it's, Shadrick, I love what you just said. Independence is seen in your behavior, not on documents. We have freedom by our constitution. We have freedom by our laws, but we have no independence because of the way we behave. And there's something else you said here, the ability to make decisions without influence. What economic decision can Zambia make without a foreign investor, without a foreign power, be it east or west? What independent decisions are we making when you read our budgets, read ourselves, and even down to the household? How many people can make education decisions for their children without the government saying? Think about the fact that we have to have, and I said this before, I know even this whole NAPSA issue. At the end, I told people, I said, I don't even believe the government should be legislating savings. I actually don't. I think that why are they making decisions for me? Why are they influencing my savings decisions? Why shouldn't I do that? That means that as an individual, I'm not independent. So as Zambia, what I've seen is that we have an independent system, and not even really independent, but an independent quote unquote system, but a dependent population. This is where we are. The people are dependent. Now, I'm gonna put one more thing here that we should actually pay attention to. And here it's just an analogy. Here in Chilanga, we had an issue with water. We had an issue with water recently, and I was calling around frantically because I was looking for a Bowser to fill up our tank. It was behind, and I was like, let's just fill up water. We'll try and figure out whether we need to drill more later. These are questions I started asking, but I said first things first, we get some water flowing through here because water is critical to every daily function of life. You can't once your water's out, you're gone. So I found out that one of the only Bowsers in Chilanga was by the council, the Chilanga Town Council. They have a Bowser. Kenny will be back with us just now. Yeah. So the Chilanga Town Council has a Bowser. And so I called the council, and I called the councilman. I said, how much is it for us? How much should we pay for the council to come and fill up our tank? I asked that question, and he turns around and he says, no, we just give. It's not of any charge. We just give. And you know what I realized? I was like, but why would these people pay for something just to turn around and give it for free? Why are they just giving it out for free? Because they understand something. If you give someone free stuff, you can control their freedom. You see, when somebody doesn't have any, you see, if you are dependent on me for water, then I say when you can get water. Then I say when you can do anything. So I think what people don't understand about independence, freedom is your mobility, your ability to do things. Independence is what you pay for. What you are able to pay for without anybody else coming in and getting involved, that is independence. So can we run our business budgets without the influence of outsiders? Can we run household budgets without the influence of the government? Can we run our economy without the influence of outsiders? That is independence, without the input of outsiders. So this was a man, I understood the political importance of not charging for that water. Not charging for it means he could dictate when you get your water.
Yes,
and you are at his mercy. So what I chose to do is I just found someone else who was delivering water, and I got them myself because I said I'd rather have my independence than be dependent on a politician. That's not going to happen for me. I would rather, and I understand, yes, it's a privilege by the work that I've been doing, but yes, I would rather have my independence than be dependent on a politician for my life, because I understand that if a politician can control your water, they can control your life. And that is what you need to understand, is that you can be free. There are some places where you can even let the prisoner walk. But if they're dependent on you, they're dependent on you. And that's a big thing. So I just wanted to put that out there, that it depends on our dependence. Independence is about our behavior. What do we do? Does it reflect that nobody else can control our decisions and our actions? And if other people are controlling our decisions and our actions, you are free to choose them, because what they're doing is they're influencing. They're not forcing your decisions or actions. They're influencing your decisions or actions. And I think as a people, we need to do that. So I think the next question, we understand what this is personally and nationally. I think we've flogged this now. And I'm sure Kenny will eventually join us, because it's sad that he keeps going sideways. Well, there is a link, Shadrick, between, sure, we can be educated. People always say education. I always think education is wonderful, but it is the conduit to something greater. What gives people freedom is the ability to make financial decisions on their own that impact their resources. That's the full independence. You are independent when you can make your own financial decisions. What's the difference between China and Zambia? China can finance its whole budget, everything. China can finance everything about itself, from its healthcare to its people.
Zambia has got to kneel down, has got to insult, to say somebody you failed to ask for 10 years. I've begged for 2 months, I've been given. That's not independence.
Yeah. So the question is, what's the difference? What's the difference between us and them? And I think, Shadrick, the issue is they have pursued economic agency. They control their own production of things. They produce their own things. They produce their own food. They produce their own electronics. They produce everything for themselves. And I've noticed that countries that make things for themselves and have entrepreneurs who meet the needs of their country, as opposed to bringing investors, foreign brands, foreign businesses to come and meet the needs of their citizens, to the point where even toothpicks have to be produced by other people. When people can make stuff for themselves, then they are truly independent. Kenny, before we lose you, can we get your thoughts on this conversation about freedom and independence before we lose you one more time?
I'm telling you, today StreamYard just doesn't love me. Nothing to do with the internet. The internet is fine. Okay, so my story on freedom, basically, I had what I'd call a revelation of what freedom actually means at some point a couple of years ago, and I remember sharing it with someone, but I can't get to that frequency of understanding exactly. Yeah, but there was a story of Madam Mama Kankasa, where she talks about being in a lovely relationship with her boyfriend. I've forgotten one of the popular freedom fighters. I've forgotten the name. Someone can mention the name when if they remember who. And then they've got good money, and they're walking in a place like Kawata. And then the boyfriend then decides, look, let me get you something nice in this shop. So they walk into this white-owned shop. They've got the money. They can afford to buy whatever they want to buy. And the white man says, no, I'm not going to sell it to you. You know, they refuse, like outright refuse. But he insists. He says, look, I've got the money. I'm good for it. I can pay for this. And before you know it, the cops come through. They get arrested, and they were tortured. And Dr. Kaunda came through and assisted them. And that's how they joined the freedom struggle. So a situation like that makes you appreciate your ability to choose whatever it is that you want when you want. And that's why I think most people who decide to leave employment because they're assuming that they're living life outside a particular box, now they are free to make decisions the way they want to make them. For me, that kind of made me realize why we fought for independence and how we got to where we are today. And then how we may have not understood what our forefathers were fighting for, so much that later on, as we speak, we'll probably discuss how to build on what those that fought for independence 58 years ago, what their situation was. And if you see the joy of parents, the time that they were building UNZA, there were all kinds of parents there. And they were like, we're building this for a future generation. And I know Mutwala and UNZA, he recently posted something, not against UNZA, but you see what UNZA has become and what it really should stand for. Those that put a brick on top of the other brick had a vision in mind. They saw the future and said, when this future comes, this is what we want to become of our children. We want our children to be better than us, to build better institutions than us, to build a better Zambia than us, because most of them were not as educated as we are today. If you compare apples to an egg. If I remember very well, I think you've said this before, we have a history of gaining independence and not much skilled labor, probably under 100 graduates. And the government now is in a rush to try and...
Okay, we're still here, Kenny. Still here? Okay, so we are out. I think he's back. Yeah, Kenny.
All right.
Okay.
Let's continue for now. Yeah.
No, there's something he did say, which I wanted to get to, was even that story, and this comes down to entrepreneurship, because I wanted to now mix this in. Why is entrepreneurship important for economic freedom and economic independence, and specifically economic independence? Because I know we have political independence to pick whoever we want, but we have no economic independence. That's why we can pick politicians, but it never seems to change anything. Because if I look at that story, Kenny's talking about two people who went into a store and they had the money, but they did not have what they wanted. They did not have control over the resources they wanted. Yes, you have cash, but the white man had the products. And that's really what you wanted. Now, what entrepreneurship, I think, does for people is it does two things. For an individual, they get to pick what lane they want to go in. Because when you're working, and look, it's nothing against work, but I think most people who go into entrepreneurship or even self-employment, they usually struggle with this idea of being dictated to. Okay, they want the freedom to at least be able to say, I'm going to determine what impact my work has. And these are some of the people who are purpose-driven. Some people are forced into self-employment because nobody will hire them. But those who leave employment are in the pursuit of their freedom. Because there's usually a frustration with hours being dictated to you, outputs being dictated to you, and you feel like, what's wrong with this? There's more to my life than this. But the pursuit of freedom, that people look to is maybe they see a problem in society, and maybe the institution they work for doesn't give them the freedom to pursue that problem, and it's something that they mean for. So they build an enterprise which will meet their needs. It will meet their basic needs. It will meet their life. But they want to be able to now go after that problem, that issue, which got off to their lives. Or maybe there's a lifestyle they want to pursue, because entrepreneurs are usually in there for two things. They usually want a lifestyle or they want a legacy. Most of them, unfortunately, go for lifestyle. That's why their businesses, once they die, that business dies with them. But the legacy entrepreneurs, like your trade kings, those are legacy people. They had something bigger in their mind. That's why you've noticed it's getting bigger with each generation, because there's a legacy outlook. But for a nation, if we're going to talk about independence, if a nation is to be independent, and I don't know, I think I've, I
No,
don't know
it's
if
okay.
Shadrick
It's okay.
is, yeah, I'm saying
Okay.
if a nation is to be fully independent, then what should happen is that the people of that country must produce everything that country needs. Because the story, as he talked about, of Mama Kankasa and her boyfriend at that time was, we have the money, but we don't have what we want. Because independence is being able to acquire and create what you want for yourself. And that's why Booker T. Washington, when he talked about the future of the American Negro, he said, if we build our own businesses, where we start to produce food for ourselves, where we start to cut each other's hair, where we tailor our own clothes, we will be independent of the white man. Until then, that's what he said, that's when we'll be independent. So a country to be independent requires entrepreneurs to be the frontline problem solvers of its society, or else it will find itself free to move around, but restricted or controlled by its dependence on outside forces. Because if your toothpicks have to come from China, if China says, right, we're not exporting toothpicks anymore, Zambians are going to have issues eating. Hey, we'll be picking our teeth with our bare hands, and even eating will be an issue. No, as in, even the Americans struggled with this idea that China was producing so much. Do you know, Shadrick, that 50% of the world's Bibles are produced in China, a country that barely practices Christianity? So even the churches.
What is fun that they don't want to see you holding a Bible, but they're the ones who produce more Bibles.
They produce they supply the world's 50. So they've even got the Christians dependent on their printing presses. They've got everything. Your clothing on your back is dependent on Chinese factories, such that when COVID happened and they shut down all the factories, we had all the money in the world to buy that clothing. But guess what? We had no clothing. So the price of everything shot up. We were dependent on them. Okay, so what dependence does to people is it also creates highly inflationary environments. From an economics perspective, if you're dependent on someone and then they shut off your supply line, you now start paying anything for the scraps that are remaining, and prices start to go up for anything. We're dependent on Brazil and South Africa for half of our beef supply. We were getting dependent on South Africa for chickens. We were getting dependent on next door neighbors for fish to come in. The fact that we need them to bring stuff in and we're not giving them as much, we are dependent on them. So entrepreneurship is a way of, as an individual, attaining your independence. You're creating this asset that can feed all your needs, but at the same time, it allows you to pursue something of meaning. It allows you to allocate your time to something of meaning. That's what being an entrepreneur is. Allocating your time and your energy to something of meaning while meeting all of your needs at the same time. But for a nation, it's what gives the country independence. When you have a lack of entrepreneurship, or as Zambia is, when you're only 0.5% or 0.4% of the population are entrepreneurs, are employers. That's what we mean by entrepreneurs, employers. When a small percent of the population are employers, then who's going to employ the country? Who's going to employ the 9 million working people or the 9 million working age people when you've got less than 100,000 employers? Because now you're dependent on feeding programs, nutrition programs. You're now dependent on all sorts, because you haven't built entrepreneurship to meet those needs, to one, create jobs, and two, create products. Because that's what entrepreneurs do. They create jobs and they create products to meet the needs of people, which takes away the dependency of people. That's my view on why it's critical to have a very strong domestic, not just businesses, domestic entrepreneurship base to be able to attain true independence as a country.
That's very true, Mnyumba. I've always felt that as a nation, I think we've done poorly. Maybe it has got to do also with our political system. It appears to me that we enjoy being controlled a lot. That's just the way it looks like. Look at the late Magufuli from Tanzania. That man refused to be controlled. This is why Tanzania moved from a lower income country to a middle income country. Why? Because the president took it upon himself to say, you know what, enough was enough. Let's make our own money. Let's make our own economic decisions. And Tanzania today and Zambia can't be compared. Look at Libya. Libya and Zambia in 1964. Zambia was the second richest country in Africa. Today, Zambia is one of the poorest countries in Africa. What is the difference between Zambia and Libya? It's because Libya decided to take their own economic decisions in their own hands. Gaddafi refused to be controlled. He refused to be dependent upon other people. And do you know, but people in Libya, for years, they never knew what rent is. They never paid rent. When Gaddafi was, after Gaddafi died and was kicked out of office, that's when people started knowing what it means to pay rent. They miss him dearly. They say, you know what, we didn't know what we did with that man. Why? Because he understood something. He knew that, it's like what you said, whoever controls your water can control your life. All right? Because he controls when you're going to drink water, and you need water to survive. So if we can, as a nation, begin to look for ways of empowering ourselves, and this is why I was catching feelings when I saw the budget. I still remember this statement as if it was yesterday. The Minister of Finance was asked, you and I were there in that dinner. He was asked, sir, why have you given holidays to mines and you decide to charge you regulate your own SMEs? He said, you know what, if we overtax our mines, our investors, they're going to run away. Do you know what he was saying? He was saying that, you know what, guys, we depend on these people. Yeah. If we piss these people off, we are done. That's what he was saying. Now, imagine the owner of the mine sitting somewhere watching the Minister of Finance say, if we overtax these guys, they're going to run away. What is he thinking with his friends? He's laughing that these people depend on me. All right? They can't tamper with me because they know if I leave, their country is going to be shaken. So it is because of that mentality. We don't think we are good enough to make our own economic decisions. This is why we are being controlled left, right, and center. And it is because of that that even these things of unnecessary human rights, we embrace it. Why? Because it's like you can't bite the finger that is feeding you. All right? Mm-hmm. So the finger that feeds you decides what to do. It's like big buyer. People that drink, they say when a big buyer starts to dance, you dance with the big buyer. The big buyer smiles, you smile with the big buyer. That's the kind of economy we have. We laugh at the jokes of the big buyer, we dance with the big buyer, and we clap for the big buyer, even though the big buyer is wrong. And this is the mentality we need to run away from. And this mentality, remember, sadly, as a person that does family finance, I'm going to tell you, it has also entered homes. Yeah. Lack of economic independence. It has entered people's homes. You find that the husband and the wife, they say they love each other, they are posting each other on Facebook every single time, looking good, they're on vacations, but ask them their financial life. It is totally the opposite of the love they say they have for each other. So this same trend of lack of economic independence, even in homes, a lot of husbands have not given their wives economic independence. They are still dependent upon the dad. There's no minimum dad, there's no, it is not there. So it has affected also our homes. But because this is what we see, our government does the same, people that control economy does the same. So even in our homes, it has entered. There is no economic independence. People have got the independence. For example, the wife can cook what she wants to cook, right? Maybe she can eat what she wants to eat, but she can't spend the money she wants to spend because this is not to mean that you have to be able to misuse. No, but a lot of people have got no economic independence, even in homes. So it's a sad reality, really, Mnyumba, that you say that, it's like you say, I love you so much, my friend, and you have a lot of money as a husband, but your wife can't use it. Your money is your money, all right? If she wants to buy something, she has to ask you, but she has the freedom to cook, but she doesn't have the freedom to spend, all right? That's where we are as a nation. We have the freedom to move around, to issue statements, like other institutions that we are able to see. They're able to issue statements, but they can't think on their own. So even serious institutions, they also like independence. So it is a thing that has infiltrated the whole system, starting from economic independence, how we operate, how we look at things, how we behave. So it's a thing, it's a cancer. It's a cancer.
And my concern, I think, more than anything, is it's become normalized. And politicians, I really look. Let me just be honest with you. One of the reasons I don't really expect much from them. I'm just being honest with you. It's a very sleazy profession that, unfortunately, it's affected. Like anybody who goes in there, that's one of the reasons I can't do it. It's a very, your soul has to be in a different place when you start going into that profession, because you have to be okay with just lying to anybody who you feel like half the time. Now, my concern is how much, like you've pointed out, how much this happiness with lack of economic independence has been. How okay guys are. Even that situation, Shadrick, of people being okay being a mooch off a big buyer. Okay? That's my biggest concern I've seen with people. And as us, I think that what we need to start looking at is, and I'll go through all of this when it comes to financial freedom and independence, but the first step is to create your own wealth base. One of the things that I've noticed about countries that become economically independent is they create an independent wealth base. And I think somebody has written here, so as a country, how can we gain financial freedom and independence because we depend on Western aid for financial assistance? The simple step is make your own businesses and start them from scratch. Mark Cuban was in a video once, and everyone is saying access to capital, access to capital. Mark Cuban was in a video where he's being interviewed. Now, Mark Cuban started a business from nothing, people. That guy started his businesses from nothing. And he said this. He said, and I'm sorry for the language, people, but that's what he said. He said, if you start a business with a loan, you're a moron. And he said the reason is you're taking on a fixed obligation to pay that loan back based on variable income. You don't even know what's on the sales side of it. He says, look, most businesses can be started with next to nothing because most of it takes brain power and creativity as opposed to finance. So when we're saying, when we're busy going around saying, no, it's the access to capital that's limiting us. If the access to capital was the problem, and I'm being honest with you, if access to capital was the number one problem to entrepreneurship not being big enough, then can you explain citizens' economic empowerment to me? Can you explain the failures of citizens' economic empowerment to me? Over the many years that we've distributed money to people, if access to capital was the real issue that was holding back entrepreneurship in this country, then explain why we only have an 27% collection rate from citizens' economic empowerment businesses. Explain why we've got such a high problem, like the money that was going from DBZ to Zambian businesses. Explain why it was doing that. Because there's an issue with the way we're dispensing, and there's an issue with the mindset that we have. We have a mindset problem as a country, and we don't want to address that. We don't want to address the fact that when we haven't created vision and intentionality amongst our people. So if you want economic freedom as a country, and I'll tell you this, China is the best example. China went and attained economic freedom, which has given them independence and respect. And how did they do it? They built their own businesses from scratch. They went as people, built factories, and told Nike, you want us to make shoes, we'll make shoes for you. Hire Jingho here to come and make your shoes for you. Now they're making their own shoes. You know that China now has a pair of sneakers called Anta sneakers that actually competes with Nike now and Adidas. And they've even got NBA players. NBA players are now being paid to wear Anta sneakers, which are made by a Chinese family, a father and his two sons. And they're competing. They make $10 billion a year in revenue selling sneakers around the world, basketball sneakers. They have learned how to make their own things. Yes, they started by imitating, but they learned how to produce their own things. They learned how to take control of their resources. So if you want to become financially independent and financially free, when there's a problem in Zambia, a Zambian has to solve it. Okay? We have to get to that mentality of, okay, there's no water here. A Zambian-owned water company comes and now starts to create itself. Oh, we don't have enough of this. A Zambian-owned. When Zambians take control of problem solving through the act of entrepreneurship, we are on the road. Because if you look at China and their journey, China has created 5.3 millionaires in the last 5.3 million millionaires in the last 20 years. And what have the majority of them been? Entrepreneurs. Chinese people, yes, save 25% of their income. They invest well. They're very good with money. But one of the things they're also very good with is business. Look at the way they're closing us down in our own country. They come here and those guys are willing to sleep in their fact. They're willing to sleep at the back of their shops. When a Chinese man comes, opens his shop 7, 8 in the morning, sits there counting the money, managing things scrupulously. So it's that dedication. If you want to look at who's becoming independent in Zambia, economic independent, look no further than the Rwandese who are running those shops in the compounds. The Rwandese are moving into the middle class faster than any other group I've seen. Why? Because they open their shop at what time and they close their shop much later. Rwandese open a shop at 6 in the morning, close it at 22 hours because they're determined to make that money and they're determined to build their own way. The Rwandese that you are busy crying about, no, we have to get loans for cars. We need our NAPSA to buy cars. Rwandese refugees who came here with nothing but the shirts on their back are now owning cars. They ran from a genocide and they're coming here to own cars. You who's been born here with your education and your degrees, what you're busy talking about, I need my NAPSA to get a car. But the Rwandese who came here with a nickel, a dream, and a little bit of money in their pocket has now gone there and has now started to create something. So you see what I mean?
We have Sichimata, all right? Sichimata says the other problem with his citizens form cooperatives once government announces funds either as CDF or citizen empowerment. Another first problem is that cooperatives buy business proposals from internet cafes without working the vision in a document. See what Sichimata is saying. He's saying exactly. That it's difficult for us to be economically independent because we don't even understand what we want. All right. Like when you hear the government say that, you know what, there's CDF, that's when you go to the internet cafe and buy proposals. They put for your names, you don't even know what is there. You don't even know the vision. All right. So it's the same thing with our systems. All right. Whenever where there's money available, this side we go as a team. They were flown out to go and negotiate debt. This is what Chimata is arguing here. And if you see, we have.
Can I
say something? Give a comment on that one.
Yeah, I was just giving Kenny an option because I think we haven't heard from him enough. Yeah.
I've actually, someone was asking me, you're a supplier, what do you supply? I said, I supply on demand. I said, and the reason is because if there is a problem, I want to be able to solve it. But if you ask me to stock up things in my warehouse of what you want me to fix, I'll probably lose a lot of money because then I'll tie capital in things that don't make sense. And when you look at what you're explaining, the people who are growing business-wise are people who have studied our culture, our way of doing things, and they've built businesses around that. I saw something in South Africa that shocked me. You know, the culture in South Africa is one where if you're burying the dead, you must bury them with respect. That's why the insurance is booming when it comes to the dead. You find that all the children will insure the same parents because they want to contribute to the funeral of their parents because they believe if they don't, when the parent dies, they'll curse them. You understand? So those that have built a business around insurance, they've insured, they've tapped into that culture. When you look at Zambia's culture, it's more consumption than production, all right? It's more consumption than production. And that's why when the time came to let go of means of production, we just threw them away for next to nothing. You understand?
But Kenny, just one point there. Should we not change our culture? Is that not a culture that should change? If we truly want independence, should we not ascertain a change of culture? I mean, culture is not bedrock. I mean, you can change these things as society, but I'm just saying, should we not be going down that route? Yeah.
You can enhance it.
To become more productive. That's what I mean.
Yeah, you can enhance it. Yeah. That's why you see, when you look at the culture in government institutions when it comes to service delivery, it's totally different from private sector. There's a certain level of efficiency that private sector has that you will find rare and almost impossible in terms of service delivery in state-run institutions. They deliberately fail to allow corruption to thrive. And we need to realize that corruption is an economy on its own. It's a system that feeds on itself. So people who deliberately make a whole entire business like a lime factory in Roma fail, okay? Or because you want to bring in an investor, come and buy it so you get your 10%. You're selling your birthright. And whoever has quoted a 10% principle killed this. Because now the people of today are people who sold the future of this nation for a 10% commission. just for them to have.
All right, I think you can
Yeah,
take it
Kenny,
up.
I
There's
think
very bad feedback from Ken.
yeah, unfortunately, Kenny, we're now losing you, unfortunately. So the yeah. So I think that I wanted to just let it be known that as a country, should we want economic independence, you can have economic freedom where you can be free to move around, but the reality is your life will be constrained by your dependencies, because what you're dependent on will still control your mind. So, you know what I believe, Shadrick, in all of this? I believe that free hands is an act of the law, but a free mind, that's independence. So, in as much as we want to have independence, we don't have independence up here between the ears, because we are dependent on, if something goes wrong, the government, if something goes wrong, investors, if something goes wrong, this one. You know, there's Anko Ndarama. You know, there's that mentality. Everything, there has to be somebody who's going to get me through this. Okay, as opposed to, what can I sit down and do? Because Shadrach, we've done debt restructuring with people. We've done it ourselves.
Yeah.
We've both gone through horrible. And one of the things we
Yeah.
notice is it's the people who sit down and say, I'm going to take responsibility. All I need someone to do is help me formulate a plan. I will action that plan and we'll get through it. And I've noticed those are the people who get out of debt, stay out of debt, and build wealth and become independent and powerful individuals. Those who say, it's this one's fault that I'm in debt, it's that one's fault that I'm in debt, it's the government, it's the economy, it's this. Those who blame. If you want to get out of being dependent, stop blaming others. You have to take responsibility, even if you didn't inflict the pain on yourself, or even if it wasn't inflicted. You have to take responsibility, because responsibility is having the power and influence to enact the solution. It is not the blame, okay? That's what everyone thinks. Everyone thinks taking responsibility for something is about taking the blame for it. Taking responsibility. I didn't cause the financial problems of Zambia, but I'm taking the responsibility to try and fix it. It doesn't mean I caused it. I didn't make everyone financially illiterate. I didn't make everyone not think right about money. But I've taken the responsibility because it's a problem I feel strongly about. So you can take responsibility for things without assuming blame. So I think I think one of the problems culturally in Zambia, I've seen a lot, is that people don't want to take responsibility for things, because then it means you assume blame for the problem. It's your fault. That's why you're doing it, because we have this guilt system. So if you fix something, it's your fault. Even if something happens to you and it's not your fault, you still have the ability to take responsibility, because I remember Pastor Gregory Dikau said this. He said, responsibility is not blame. He said, it's actually, the meaning is actually in the word. It's the ability to make a response to the problem. Okay? It's your ability to choose your response and to act in the way that you think is the best for this. That is responsibility that a person needs to take. So I think putting that down, Shadrach, I think the main thing I wanted to get from this is, we need to have a culture of taking responsibility, even if you find, I remember Wisdom I was talking about the head of Nando's once, and the guy found he found papers on the floor outside. This is the CEO, the guy who owns Nando's, like Nando's globally. So he was there picking it up, picking up papers, and he said he found the guy outside. He's like, what's going on? He's like, why are you picking up the papers? He's like, because if I was the boss, I'd be saying, guys, pick up papers. And he said, the customer will not care who picked up the papers. All they'll care is that the place is clean when they're eating. This is my establishment. I may have not thrown these papers on the ground, but it's my responsibility to ensure that the customer has a good eating experience. Now, who Shadrach in this country has that mindset?
Remember, we have a problem here, and I think the lack of taking responsibility, and this has been seen, remember, in the way we treat our citizens. It's like we are being babied a lot by our governments, and I'm gonna say this in its strongest terms possible. Look at the budget, just for example, remember. We have CDF, social cash transfer. We have all these things, CAS, which was feasible. All these, mechanisms are simply meant to dish out money to people who can't even use it well. We can't be economically independent if we keep dishing out money to people. We have to fish with people. We have to teach people how to fish. All right, like you are saying, remember, we did not cause any problem when it comes to financial literacy. But what have we done? we are contributing to, in our own small way, to ensure that we have a nation that is financially informed. Right? People are able to make sound financial decisions. So the only way we can become economically independent as a nation is if we do away with these things of CDF. If we're going to give somebody CDF, let's ensure it goes to somebody who has a proper business plan. We monitor, we start a business, we open up a company, like what China does. China has some training centers where they have kids who are able to make cell phones, kids who are able to do ABCD. They have put people in centers.
First, they teach them a skill. Yes. First thing they teach you is this. Before they give you money, they give you a skill. That's what they do in China.
So in China, they have all these skill centers, lots and lots of them. Kids at a young age are able to become millionaires because they are making things and China is exporting, they are selling. But here, what do? Let's go to FISIP, CASP, let's go to Showcase Transfer, let's go to CDF. We are dishing out money which we've borrowed. Why can't you open up those, a lot of training centers and then get our people and put them in those, they acquire skills, right? Let them acquire those skills so that they can fend for themselves. Let people begin to invest in the economy on their own. But if you keep giving them CDF, all they're going to think about is being political aligned, becoming cadres, insult everybody as long as they get a paycheck. You can't be independent like that. So I think we have done very poor when it comes to taking responsibility. We've not taken responsibility of our own lives. This is why we depend on the government, even as a people, not just the government, even us, remember. We've performed very poorly as a citizen, as a people, because we depend so much on the government. We expect the government to do things our parents couldn't do for us. We want that from the government. And because we have that mentality of saying it's the government, it's this one, we are now unable to think for ourselves and come with the ideas to be able to give us enough cash into our reserves. I think responsibility is a very good point to put apart because all of us are affected. If you take responsibility of your life, I take of mine, others I'm going to do something about it, all of us begin to trade, begin to invest, begin to compete. Before we know it, we have an economic environment that is full of Zambian investors, not just foreign investors. But what do? We don't take responsibility. We want to blame the politicians. Man, they are comfortable. Let them enjoy themselves, all right? They are comfortable. Even if you complain, they're not going to come back and change your life. So the best thing that we can do, yes,
politician changes your life.
They are comfortable.
Jesus is coming tomorrow.
Yes, and it's not their job to come and change your life. Their job is simply to get what is called an enabling environment. Once they do that, man, you are on your own. Suit yourself. So the best you can do as a citizen that wants to see an economically independent nation is to begin to participate in the economy. How do you begin to participate? Can you begin to formulate ideas? Can you begin to acquire knowledge, acquire skills, do something, all right? Look at Mbendai. We are using our skill, all right, to benefit ourselves. We don't go to bother politicians and say, can you give us money? Give us CDF. No.
I refuse to take free water from a politician because I use my economic skills for it.
Yes. There's something that a lot of Zambians are good at. A lot of Zambians, I know. I'm going to tell you something. I was talking to a lady in one of my couple sessions. This woman knows how to bake. Remember, she makes beautiful cakes, nice scones, nice pies. And what does she do with that skill? Nothing. She just bakes for her household. So I told her, you know how to bake. If you can bake a cake, a pie that tastes this good, because I actually found that your pie is quite tasty. Why can't you create a brand to begin to sell? Says, say, no, you can still start small advertising. As I speak right now, this lady is making money through cakes and the pies. So a lot of Zambians have skills, but they lack the ability to implement those skills, to put them into action. They know how to bake, they can cook, they can do a lot of things. What do they do? We are okay to go out a musician, sing, and pay money and spend money on alcohol, but we're not okay to go to acquire a skill and spend and squash on that skill. This is why those people who attend entrepreneurial functions, those who attend financial associations, I have much respect for such people because they spend money on things that benefit them. Most of us don't. We don't take responsibility. We want to go and drink. People spend thousands. Today is Sunday. Tomorrow is a holiday number. As we speak right now, people are drunk. They have spent thousands and thousands. We'll be seeing invoices tomorrow morning on Mwebanto and other pages. They will be posting those receipts. All right, but those same people are spending so much money on alcohol. They can't spend a coin on financial information. They can't do that. So how do we
business and
expect to have
entrepreneurship,
set up an entrepreneurship event remember right now, and just bring a dongoistic musician to come and stand in front of you. You're going to see everybody's going to go to entertainment. All right. But when they live there, they are leaving money there. When they come to an entrepreneurial event, they're coming to learn how to fish, how to make money, how to do certain things that they may have been doing wrong. But that mentality, even as a people, I think not just the government, but we've done very poorly with our education system, with our, I think even in our families, we've done very poorly, remember. We've not trained our kids at a young age the value of working for the money, the value of trying to nurture the skills and do something with what you have to improve your life. We've not done that as a nation. We've failed terribly. This is why even the white guy, anybody else who can just come from China, IMF, World Bank, they can impose things on us because they understand that we're not independent economically. We are handicapped. We are going to say, thank you, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. We'll do just that, sir. So that's where we are right now, Mnyumba. It's a sad reality.
You know, Shadrick, there's something, yesterday I watched something quite interesting where there was a gentleman, I think Edwin Ngambwe shared this. He shared a Jewish gentleman who was asked the question, why are Jews good at business? And he says, that was usually something that's anti-Semitic, but I want to answer what we do. And he said, one of the first things that the Jewish community does is it's actually a commandment that every parent should train their child in a skill. And it says, if you do not train your child in a skill, you are influencing them to go and steal. Because without a skill, you can't make money. So therefore, you are forced to look for money and take money from people. So the question is, even the handing down of each generation, a skill from each generation, and the ability to make money. We send people to school, but what is the ability to make money? Okay, so that's what I really want as many people to focus on, that when people have the ability to make money for themselves and make investment, that's participating in the economy. It's not, participation in the economy is not consuming things. That's part of the game. But one of the main sides of participation, if you want power as an individual, I always say this, go back to Adam. When Adam was blessed by God, he was blessed to work, but he was blessed to produce. God said, be fruitful. Be fruitful. Fruitful in Hebrew means productive. Okay? But then when God cursed him, he said, by the sweat of your brow shall you eat. Adam was not taken from work. Adam was already working. But he was told, your mind will now be consumption-based, while it was production-based first. So the key to actually being powerful and independent, it's very simple, people. Produce more than you consume. Anybody who produces more than they consume is in power. So that's what entrepreneurship is supposed to do as a nation. And we go back to taking responsibility for society's problems and putting them upon us. Egypt is one of the biggest production centers of fish in Africa. But Egypt is a desert. Zambia has how many rivers? But Egypt has one river running through it, and they're producing the majority of fish in this continent. Zambia has how many lakes and rivers? We are majority water, basically, in this country. We have water underneath, water everywhere, but we are still struggling to produce fish. Because of there's an independence issue in our minds that no matter how free you think you are always constrained by that because you cannot produce. So entrepreneurship is about unlocking, and even the type of entrepreneurship people practice. I love that comment that man said, where when there's money around, that's when they become entrepreneurs. No. Yeah. An entrepreneur is not created by money being dispensed out. An entrepreneur is created when there's a problem in society that they see as profitable. Not when there's money to be dished out by the government. When an entrepreneur sees 1,000 people, 10,000 people need help in financial knowledge or need to be able to access my assets. That's what awoke my entrepreneurial spirit. Seeing how many people in this country were thirsty and hungry to try and get our hands on investing in government bonds or investing in the stock market or investing in unit trusts and building their own wealth. And they needed help doing that. They needed a skilled practitioner to take them through that. That is what awoke my entrepreneurial instinct. Not somebody dished out money so that I could do it. I have no investor, people. I have no investor. I just saw a problem. Shadrick saw families that needed assistance in how to build their financial structures together. Okay, how couples could work together, how they could build themselves. That is a problem he saw in society. Now he attached a price to it because there's a price for his money, for his time. Just like me, there's a price for our money. Okay, and that's still taking responsibility. And those who value you will pay that price. But the point I'm just trying to drive at is we need to get to this point where, as a country, we push people to take responsibility for the issues. I almost even supported the previous president on this, but not to vote for him. I'm sorry, I've said openly, man, my issues with that man. But he said one good thing. No, that man had issues. That man had issues. But he said one good thing. He said, I wish to see a day when Zambians take more responsibility for the issues of this country. And he was talking about producing food and producing. He said that once. Now, I don't know if it was just a moment of haze when he said that, but that was the one moment where I said, wow, you actually said something correct that we need in this country. But what I'm just trying to say is, as a people, look, it was rare. I didn't even hide it. I didn't even hide it. Nobody can come stand in front of people and say I have no vision and I must keep him around. Now, the only issue I'm going to keep saying as people is we need to be able to do this. Now, there are two books I will really stress to people at this point, and I know they're classics, but go and read them, people. One, I say it again, The Future of the American Negro. It is an extremely important book. Everyone keeps asking me this question, but how will Zambia develop? It was written 122 years ago by a gentleman named Booker Trafalgar Washington, who was born a slave, not your fake slavery, where you like using that terminology. I mean real slave, where people were whipping each other and owned each other. Go and read. The worst part about that book, Shadrick, is it's free. The worst part is it's free, okay? Because it was written 100 it's free. But the problem is once something is in writing, that's it, we're gone. But in that book, he says, the first thing you must equip a people with is a skill. Once people have a skill that he says, he actually talked about this. He said, what skills are also important? He said, I go to Negro colleges and I see old pianos around, and he says, what a shame. He says, what value is a piano player to a group of people who have just become who have just come out of slavery? What these people need is food supply. What they need is clothing. What they need is builders. So he built an instrument, and he says, it's not that there's no place for a piano player. He said it's a wonderful thing. But he said in white society where they have piano players, they have industries, they've got structures, they've got all these things that they built so that people can appreciate financially the piano player. But he says if you bring that to black society, and what's the number one complaint about black musicians in Zambia? Zambians don't pay, because we haven't economically built the base so that music can be properly appreciated in this country. We haven't built the base for that.
And remember, talking about skills, I think even last time I did mention that we have a problem with the skills. I think we need to also include this in our curriculum, where we teach people the difference between a skill and a talent, because sometimes we confuse a skill for a talent. All right, they are very two different things. A skill, you can acquire it. All right, a talent is more of a gift. So I'm going to give you an example of two people. Let's say we have somebody like yourself, Mnyumba, all right? You're a financial economist, you're a financial advisor, a licensed advisor, but at the same time, you're a very good speaker, all right? So you have a Facebook page where you have a following. People are following on the Facebook page, all right? Those people who are following on the Facebook page are giving you a certain kind of influence because they're able to express yourself. Now, what if those people were taken away from you? Your Facebook page was deleted. What is it that is going to make you earn an income away from your Facebook page? This is what I talk to people of pages. I say, you know what? You have a Facebook page. That's not a skill. It's a page. Like several other people are famous. They are famous. They can post just fingers. 100K in seconds just to post fingers. And no, guys, look at my fingers. People are excited, all right? There are people with such kinds of pages in this country. Go to want to post a nail, all right? Or simply post a lipstick at the back of the cassette. There will be thousands and thousands of comments. But the same way who post an advert for somebody selling chickens, all right? Or somebody advertising how to come on that chicken, there will be nothing. So what am I trying to say? We have to differentiate between borrowed influence and intrinsic value, all right? So there's what we call borrowed value. For example, I have a Facebook page it's giving me borrowed value. If that page was deleted by Facebook, What else do I have right now that someone cannot take away from me that can make me earn an income? That is a skill. Munyumba can speak, yes. He has a page, yes. This is broad value. But what is it that about him that even without his Facebook page, he can stand on his own and earn a living?
Exactly.
He has a skill. All right.
Yep.
So this is what we tell people. Have a skill such that even if the worst happened, that thing you depend on is taken away from you. For example, especially now we're living in terms of Facebook page, Facebook people have pages, so they think it's a skill. Having a Facebook page, it's not a skill because you post something that Facebook does not like, they'll delete it. We saw Dr. Samparisen that this page deleted, and it's gone. All right, it's gone. So aside from that Facebook page, what else does he have that can make him stand out? He's a qualified doctor. Right now, he's working somewhere. Have you seen? Why? Because he has a skill. He has a skill. But if, think of a celebrity from Facebook who has no skill but has a Facebook page, thousands of followers. If that page was deleted, what happens?
You know, Shadrick, there's what I often tell people is get skilled in your talent. Like that's one of the most powerful things you can do.
Yeah.
Become skilled in your talent. Like whatever talent you have, I've got data and analytics. I'm very good with pattern recognition. So I became skilled in economic pattern recognition. I went and learned how to harness this so that it can be useful to someone directly. Once I Facebook is a marketing channel. Once I get a hold of someone directly, now I can start selling services to them, which they know are valuable to them. That's a difference. So I think a lot of people are relying on Facebook for a money channel when it should be a marketing channel. It should be a way to reach people. Okay, but not your supply of actual money. Like that's where your actual money comes from. Anyway, so let's go through this question before, because I want, in fact, let's just hold the questions until we get to, I think we get to the end, because I don't want us to drift away for now. But we will get to that question. There's a concept, Shadrick, I wanted to do, and right now I think we don't want to drift too far away. Is what is the purpose of freedom? We got our freedom as a country, but what is the reason? What's the purpose? And I'll say this. Freedom is the vehicle that you use to pursue meaning. That's what freedom is. When people say, I want financial freedom, I want to get to financial freedom, you know, the question I ask them is, why do you want financial freedom? Because you're going to get bored, okay? If all your bills were paid, if you put your money to work and all your assets are coming in and paying, what are you going to do? Because if you don't have a reason to want to be free, if you don't have a pursuit of meaning, something that you will find that will you feel glorifies that which you believe in, or lightens up your heart. If you don't have something, you're going to resort to just drinking away the very wealth that you put down. You're going to drink, party, and spend it away because the boredom will lead you to seek excitement out in your life. So what exactly is it that you are looking for that is so strong that when Elon Musk became worth $250 billion and became the richest man on earth, and people said, what are you going to do next? He said, I'm going to return back to work. Why? Because he already was doing something of meaning. That's what got him to that wealth. So I think people, like in our financial pyramid, the financial pyramid that we always say, people manage your money well so that you can reach your financial goals, so that you can attain financial freedom, so that you can pursue fulfillment. What is fulfilling to you? Because I think this is the issue here. People, freedom is not the destination. Freedom is it's a requirement to pursue things of meaning to you. You need to be financially free and personally free to pursue meaning. So why did our people fight for independence? Why did they fight for the freedom of this country? So the citizens could build the country they thought they would want. That's why they fought for it. That's why they struggled for it. They believed in this concept where the people should it's not just about, Shadrick, it's not just about walking into a shop and buying what you want. It's about owning the shop, so that your people can have what they want. That's what it should be. That's what Booker T. Washington was stressing. You know what? And you know when in 1890, going into 1910, they had this problem in that book, and I loved it because not in that book. In later on in his essays, he writes about how the Ku Klux Klan and the segregation of America led to telling black people, you're not allowed to go into this diner. Do you know what mentality the black Americans had then, Shadrick? When you didn't allow them to go into a diner, you know what they did? They would say, fine, we'll make our own diner. That's what they used to say. And you know what they found? They found that the more white people were racist and restrictive to black people, the more black entrepreneurs were coming out. When you didn't have black people being allowed to go to a dentist, black dentists started to pitch up. When white lawyers weren't serving black people, black lawyers started to pitch up. So black business people were serving the underserved needs of black people. So that's what entrepreneurship, and it gave a freedom so much so, Shadrick, that they started to see black unemployment declining so fast. They started to see black wealth starting to rise. It started to concern them so much as white Americans. They actually got very concerned as to how rich and how powerful the blacks were starting to become economically. And you know who serves that perfect example, Shadrick? The Indians in Zambia, the Indians in America.
Exactly.
The Indians come here. They come here and they start building stuff. Now look at they own 80% of the factories in this country are controlled by people of Indian descent. 80%. Because they see a problem and they solve that problem. They don't say government must. They don't even say it. They just rush straight into their backyard. They see people don't have soap. They start producing soap quickly and selling it to you because they see that you have a need. You have something that you want solved. That's money on the table for them. So if the freedom is not a place, it's not just freedom, Jay. That's not what it is. The freedom you are given is to pursue and to build things of meaning that will leave a legacy, that will impact society, and that will leave a group of people that can continue your work and you'll be able to live on. That's what I believe freedom is for. But I think people become disaffected with freedom. I've heard people say, we should just have a dictator. This freedom thing doesn't work. The democracy has failed us. Because as people, you don't understand how to utilize freedom. You just know that you don't want to be in colonization. You know that part, but you're running away from something. What are you running to? When you've escaped, where are you going to? That means something of you. And this is what we're going to discuss in our next point. But first, Shadrick, what is your view? What is the reason for people to have freedom? What is freedom for?
I remember at the session with about 98 participants some 3 months ago, of which a good number of them were couples. So this class that I had, I asked a question. I told them, what is a choice? Right. So people are saying a lot of different stuff about choices. What's the choice? And then there's a very good answer that came across. I actually didn't even read about this answer. It says, the choice is the ability to choose. But even better, it is one of the best gifts God has ever given mankind, having the free will, the ability to choose. Now, the ability to choose is what gives you meaning, right? If you can't choose to eat what you want to eat, you don't have meaning. If you can't choose to drive a car you like to drive, then there's no meaning. If you can't choose to marry somebody you truly are in love with, then you have no meaning. So having the freedom to choose is one of the greatest gifts God has ever given mankind. And this is why it saddens me so much when I see people trade their freedom for coins, because we are giving away a priceless gift to someone else. And this is what we have done economically. We have sold our freedom, our ability to choose for ourselves what is good for ourselves. We have sold it out to other people. And that is the purpose of freedom. The purpose of freedom is to enable you to decide for yourself what you would like to. This is why I want to agree with this gentleman here, Elvis Chanje, who says being free is to have access to so many things. A good example could be access to education, an enabling environment to do business and work, etc. On the other hand, to be independent is also to be free, all right? Not depending on the government for free things, but to survive on my own, not depending on handouts. Now, guys, when it comes to the national level, what does freedom mean? What is the purpose of freedom? The purpose of freedom is to enable us to decide for ourselves. The reason why KK and his colleagues fought for freedom was because they wanted to have the freedom to choose for themselves what was good for them. That was the whole idea of freedom. All right? So if you have the freedom, but you can't choose for yourself what you should do, then you have no freedom. Freedom should be able to give you independence of mind, independence of opinion, all right? If you stand out today and say something, You are saying it because you truly believe it's the right thing to do. That is independence and freedom. It must be seen in your behavior. But us as a nation, we have the freedom to choose our own leaders. Yes, we can do that. But we don't have the freedom to decide what happens to us economically. And that's where the problem is. That's where we as citizens must come. I think the purpose of freedom, Munyumba, is to be able to decide what is best for ourselves.
You know, Shadrick, there's something here. I wanna just double click into this whole choice conversation, because this comes down to entrepreneurship again. What is the form? And I'm not saying that, I say this again. If you work your job and you're not a natural entrepreneur, save and invest your money. Okay? You don't have to go into business. Your route to freedom is in your saving and investing. And that's fine. There are plenty of people who have built wealth working and saving and investing and just managing their money. They sacrifice somewhere. And here's one thing I think people don't understand. Freedom comes at a sacrifice. That choice comes at a sacrifice, because there are things that you have to deal with. And here are some other things I would say when it comes to choice. Shadrick, how free is a person if I restrict their choices? I mean, that's the question I always ask people. How free are you if your choices are restricted? If I constrain you by choice, if I only give you 2 choices in something, exactly how free are you? You see, that's the difference between independence and freedom. A millionaire, and I'm giving this person, a person who's got lots of wealth, can choose whatever they want. Okay? That's what wealth does for you. It gives you, it increases the number of choices you have. Freedom is just having freedom to choose, but I can limit your options. I can tell you, you have the freedom to choose whichever public school you want, but you are limited to public schools. I can tell you, you have the freedom to go to any hospital you want, as long as it's under NEMA. You can't go to any of these other ones. But if you have wealth, you can choose to go to a NEMA-backed hospital, or you can choose to go to a private hospital, or you can choose to go to an international hospital. You have freedom of choice. You know, just like our politicians who will never treat their illnesses in Zambia. They are always in Joburg and India. Yet they're the ones who build these same hospitals they'll never step into. Another conversation for another day. But the point I'm trying to say is, what is freedom if the choices are limited? And that's the trick about freedom and not being independent. You see, freedom is where I'll tell a person, choose between A and B. Independence is you can have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whichever one you want, because you can afford all of them. They are all in your choice. They are all in your reach. It's up to you. That's independence. And why? Because you can pay the bill for it. A person who's free is usually limited by choice because they've been given freedom. And then this other thing I'll tell people here is, know the difference between free stuff and freedom. There's a big difference between free stuff and freedom. And often free stuff comes at the cost of your freedom. Anything that's free costs you your freedom. It actually takes away a piece of your freedom. And this is what, as a country, we haven't learned to do. But I'll go back to this point, Shadrick. And Kenny, I think you'll answer this. Which has created the most millionaires in society? Because millionaires are free. Millionaires are, when you're wealthy, you're free. If you're wealthy by normal means, not by stealing. If you're wealthy by productive means, where you've created a business, it has boomed, it's done well, you've got wealth, you are free. You're free, as in you're actually independent and you're free. What has created more than that? Entrepreneurship. 75% of millionaires are what? Entrepreneurs. 75% of wealth, or massive amounts of wealth, is what? Entrepreneurs. The others are savers and investors. Yes, they can do that too. And that's why I work with them. But the point is, business creation creates a lot more millionaires. That's what China understood, that we need to let our people, Deng Xiaoping understood that the people of China must be free to create businesses. That's how I told you have $1 billion sneaker brand with a father and his 2 sons, creating billions of wealth for them. Why? Because the government understood that they need to be able to meet the sneaker needs of China. So they actually dominate 50% of the Chinese market, and they're sneaking into the American market. But what is it? It's because there was freedom to create. That's what entrepreneurship is. So if you want to create a free society, you need to embrace economic freedoms where people can actually choose to make things for themselves. Kenny, before we get into the next point of why our freedom is fruitless, and I want to talk about the Mwanawasa issue, which he actually talked about, but continue, please take on this one, Kenny. What is the purpose of freedom, and what good is freedom when your choice is limited?
purpose of freedom and freedom, how good, what, if you're limited. Someone taught me that the American society, the Black community, was to a large extent starting to become free because they were making Black businesses. So when the white people realized that, wait, these guys are actually becoming empowered, because you see, they were not allowed to go into these other businesses. They now started making Black schools, Black businesses. All of a sudden, they integrated the Black community with everybody else, and then Black empowerment sort of vanished.
They kill our whole Black empowerment schemes.
The moment cash now started being flowing within the Black community, and they started being productive because they had no choice. If they needed some of the things they were admiring, they needed to buy it from a Black institution. That became a threat. And that's why I'm kind of shocked that there's so many races around the world. The Chinese at some point were taken over. They were colonialized. The Indians were colonialized. The British caused confusion. I think Genghis Khan came through and took over Britain. I believe the Americans had their fair share. The ones you call Americans are not even Americans. The indigenous Americans are the Red Indians. So, but they've all been conquered. But we see that we seem to have a problem with the Black society. Even Blacks that are in America seem to have that linkage into the colonial past, and we seem to have a debt that needs to be paid by people we believe are responsible for our poverty. But I like what I saw Russell Simmons talking about, how he has invested with the Jews and how he says the Jews have lifted so many Black people in terms of business. And I shared something with all on my Facebook page, on my Insights page, where there was a gentleman who was breaking down 10 rules of that the Jews follow in business. And among them is doing business amongst each other and prioritizing that culture. You know, before they look outside, they must look within. The time they're looking outside, you know, they have basically exhausted the opportunity amongst themselves. And that is why you may have the freedom, but if the independence is not there, it's a bit of a problem. I think Russell Simmons talks about a Jewish who invested with him in a Jewish street, right, where most of the businesses were Jewish. But they came and set up a Black business that was backed by a Jewish guy because he understood the potential revenue that they were going to get out of that environment, which was somewhat risky, but sort of paid off. So I think when you look at the background, the fact that Black people seem to be the only race that seems to be stepped on, or believe that they're being stepped on by the magic hand or the magic leg, they seem not to overcome the fact that they are their own problem and they should be responsible for getting themselves out of the mud. I mean, look at it this way. Shadrick says it every other week. Mtwala says it every other week. Every other time we all failed. No one came to the door and gave us a handout and said, hey, Mtwala, Shadrick, this is your business. Money, start, go, prosper. We all had to find means and ways of getting out of the gutter. So while it's free within you, it's like the Matrix. You have a choice of taking the blue, which there's the red pill.
The red pill or the blue pill, yeah.
The blue pill, yeah. So you have a choice to stay in the system and be controlled, right? Or be free to fly. You understand? And be an entrepreneur so that you can make these things the way you want them. I like the way you put it, because regulation also has a tendency of limiting your growth. You can come up with this amazing idea and all of a sudden they'll clip your wings until you're Mark Zuckerberg fighting the state and you're standing before a Senate where you have to explain your business, you know, and things like that. So maybe that's the other aspect of having your clip wings or being controlled. But for me, the most important aspect is, are you free to make that choice? And the time that I was faced with that challenge, the Bible speaks of James 1 verse 8. Those that are undecided will not get anything from God. You understand? So you need to be a decided person. You need to know what you're doing. You understand? Once you know and you're set on a particular goal, at least be decided. You're either on a yes or on a no. Whichever it is, it's a decision. Now, if you're not able to even make that choice, and that choice is being made for you, then clearly you're in problems. You understand? Because someone else will decide when you should eat, when you should go to the toilet, when you should bath, And we all don't want to be in that environment because God by nature gave us free will. And that's the one thing that is unique about us. Animals have a system that they follow, you understand? But us, we build all these amazing things because we're given one thing that is different from everybody else. And that's the ability to make choices, even the bad ones. And that's why the tree had the knowledge of good and bad. Let me even conclude this point by saying, look, the knowledge of good and bad. Can you believe that today, if I decided to go and donate, I give the 100,000 and I do it publicly, there are people who are going to get offended. While I'm doing what I believe is good, I'm going to offend people who will not be happy and they'll call me a show-off. Who do you think you are? How can you do this? And this is where the culture that limits progress comes from, where you have people who will fight you because you're making progress. You understand? And you're doing something that society is accepting. They will oppose you. And then these are some of the people that eventually when you make it in life, they will not pull you down. They'll actually lift you. So I think the hard part is being able to cross over to the other side, where once you cross, people will push you and say, go. Before then, they'll be stopping you. They won't want to give you the appointments. They won't want to give you the plug. They won't want to tell you where the gold is found. They won't want to tell you where the big mines meet on Enterprise Corner. They'll hide this information. And that's a bit of our culture. And that's one of the 10 rules that gentleman shared, the Jewish man. He was like, no, we don't hide this information. We give it out. And we start teaching our children while they're still young. We teach them these things at an early stage so that when they grow up, they already understand what they need to do. So imagine you are starting your business with your NAPSA pension when you're dealing with youngsters who've been cooked from birth, and you think your pension will survive in the midst of these youngsters. They'll probably wipe you out, depending on the sector where you find yourself in. But otherwise, for me, it's a thin line. And I think it's unfair if you're going to be in an environment where you're being limited. Yeah.
And maybe just to add on what Ken is saying, just to show, like I say that I do lecture the strategic business analysis. It's a course at the master degree level. And one of the things we talk about is choice, because choice is key for every businessman. Choice is key for every entrepreneur, but because without choices, you are doomed. You're not going to make it. And let me just share a gist of what this is. So if you look at this diagram here, which I am not bringing to attention here, yes, there's something. Okay, I've shared. All right, I've shared a long document. Okay, fantastic. I opened too many. Obviously, let me just go back. Okay, let me. I'm going to bring it back again. I want to share something about choice, all right? I want to share something about choice, guys, so that you can see what I'm talking about when I say choice is extremely important. Let me just scroll up quickly and just share something about choice. There we go. Okay, boom, I found it. Good. Yeah, okay, yes. Okay, so are you able to see this, guys? Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Oh, not yet. Okay, good. Let me try again.
Okay. Yeah, I think. Yeah. So while I think he's getting that up, Kenny, just to build on what you said, it is correct. We don't value making money together. And I think Vusi talked about this once. There's only one guy allowed to be rich at a time. Shadrick, proceed. I'll get back to that point before I get into our next our closing point.
All right, so guys, what Ken is saying and what we are saying here, this is what I'm about to show. Just a gist, all right. This is a topic in a strategic business leader. It's a course at the master's level, and one of the things that we emphasize more, of course, talk about goals and other things, but one of the things that is of utmost importance is this guy here, all right. Partly because this one is what brings meaning to business. Choices have got to do with where to compete, how to compete, where and how to grow. Now, the reason why independence or freedom is important, because if you don't have the freedom, the ability to choose, the ability to make your own choice and decide what is good for you. As a business, for example, you can't decide where to compete. Someone has got to decide for you. You're going to compete this way. You can't decide how to compete because someone's going to decide for you how you should compete, all right? You can't decide for yourself where and how you should grow because somebody else is telling you don't do. So I'm going to give an example of Zambia and IMF. If you look at Zambia and the IMF and several other like China, other big economies, we lack this freedom to choose. We can't even decide on our own where to compete, how to compete, where to grow, and how to grow. Our own copper, the prices are determined by other people don't even have minds. All right. So the value of having the freedom and the independence, the ability to choose for ourselves, guys, cannot be overemphasized. It's priceless. Like Ken is saying, it's the difference between us and animals. So think of somebody who's taking away your freedom as they are preventing you from deciding as a business person where to compete, how to compete, where to grow, and how to grow. Now tell me, if those three things are taken away from you, how can you develop as a nation? Tell me, how do you develop like that?
Even regulation. I'll give you this. Even regulation. The regulations we have in this country dictate how people can start their businesses, who can start their businesses. You know that the average Zambian starts a business with less than 5,000 kwacha. Then you go and put the license to operate in your industry at 20 to 100,000 kwacha. Then you explain to me what you're doing to Zambians. You're telling them you're not allowed here. Your own people of your own skin color, of your own country, are basically telling you quietly they're removing this industry from your abilities. Have you noticed that they do that with key sectors? Energy, they'll remove it from Zambians. They'll make sure that the licensing procedures are so difficult and arduous that the Zambians cannot get in there. When they want to participate in maybe financial services, they'll make the level so hard. Okay, they make the cost so big because they want to make sure that it's preserved for those who they want flown in to come and do it. Our regulators are the frontline agents of destruction of freedom in this country, that the only freedom Zambians have is the freedom to vote. That's the only freedom that we give our people. So we've lied to our people a lot about that. And I'm hoping to see a day. I know we're starting to see regulation starting to get rolled back. And I hope we see more of an aggressive deregulation in this country when it comes to that. But I want to speak to something Kenny talked about. One of the things we all need to embrace in this country, if we are going to ascertain freedom, is this. If you don't have the money on your own to do something, you must collaborate. Zambians have to start learning to collaborate and to collaborate on things of meaning. It is important to find partnerships. I have found these two guys with me. We've been doing the show consistently, and we're going to keep growing it because it's something of meaning. But there are certain things Kenny sees that I don't. There's certain things I see that he doesn't. And I see the value in us being together. Shadrick, I see the value in working with Shadrick as well. There's certain things that we can do differently. There's certain models he knows how to utilize. There's certain experiences he has. There's certain experiences I have. And even when it comes to resources, Malcolm X said, if white immigrants can come to the US with nickels and dimes and no education, he was talking about the Eastern European ones, and pool their nickels and dimes together and then create stores, then create larger stores, which then create industries, which then create factories, which then create job opportunities. The ability for us to develop comes in the ability to collaborate. There's a lot of money sitting in the village banking system, but it's not being harmonized because you see the power of pooling. So I'm going to give you 6 laws, 6 powers that are in society, 6 sources of power. Coming, can you know it? 6 sources of power in society. What? No, we'll get to. I'm saying we'll get to just now. But I'm just saying that. Okay, quickly.
You've frozen Kenny, unfortunately. Okay, he's back. Okay, he's back.
No, it's gone. I was saying that there are six sources of power in society, and one is there are 6. They said in society, and this was a study by Eric Liu, I think. He says the 6 sources of power are 1, a weapon, 2, a law, and 3, cash. These are institutional forms of power. Okay, a weapon, a law, and cash. The other 3 are an idea, unity, and a culture. These are the others. So what institutions have is weapons, laws, and cash. They've got those at their disposal. But what individuals and society has is culture. We have unity and we have ideas. So if we can blend ideas that create new cultures and we unite amongst them, all of a sudden power comes. And I'll give you my experience even with Bond Education in putting people together. in groups and getting them to go together and start investing. We've created this culture, and it's created a force, and it's moving against even the financial system. The hierarchies of banking can now be shaken, especially in this bond trading side, because we've enabled the people and we've united them behind this cause of building wealth together and charting the future of this country. We've told people, buy your government debt because it's your country. You own your government when you own that debt. And they're able to participate freely, happily, consistently. And people are doing it. We're creating a culture. We had an idea. We spread that idea and created a culture. We've united people behind that culture, and power is being formed. That was the reason I called it power to the people, because it hinges on an idea to become a culture, to become a uniting force behind people. And if we can allow our entrepreneurs and our business ideas to serve those purposes, because if you don't have the money, the weapons, and the laws on your side, you do have the unity, the ideas, and the culture, then use that. Okay. And that's what I want as many entrepreneurs in society to know. If you're not getting funding, then figure out how to break through the culture. Kenny was talking earlier about people who are selling insurance because they know that people are going to get bewitched if you don't buy insurance. They used culture. So use the culture of the country to get ideas, to form new cultures, and then unite the people behind those new cultures. A united people behind a culture started with an idea is much more dangerous than a gun, because it doesn't die. You can shoot the person, but then another one comes up and another one comes up, and all of a sudden there's this huge pylon of people that just won't stop. If you watch the movie Braveheart, you'll even figure that out, that when he dies at the end, the people of Scotland still go and fight for their freedom because the idea was in their heart that they deserved their freedom. And so even his death didn't stop them from going to get their freedom from being there. So that's what people should understand. Build businesses where you take your idea, create cultures with your idea. If your idea can create a culture, any product, by the way, be it food, be it taxi apps, be it financial education, anything can create a culture. Okay, when you drink a beer on a Friday night, you're not paying 30 kwacha to 30 kwacha for a beer that you could have paid 9 for because you just like paying more money. There's a culture that's formed around that place where you're drinking it. So take a product or a service, create a culture, and unite people amongst it, and your business will have the force and momentum to break through, and then we'll start to create entrepreneurs that do something. So where we lack money, and where we lack the law on our side, and where we lack the weaponry to move things, then let us use the strongest weapons known to people to start a business. Start your business with an idea, unity, and culture. Now, Shadrick, just to finally, I think, get through, and I really wish, and I'm sorry, I think for Kenny, I shouldn't have cut him off. I know that he probably was seeing that he was on a few minutes left. The one problem I will point out here, people, and today we're doing a really long session because it is independence, and I want you to come away with this, and I want to ask you to write in the comments, what have you taken away from this at the end? Please share with us what you've taken away with this at the end. Is the dangers of a visionless freedom. There is a danger, because when you attain your freedom, you become visionless. And I'm going to quote, I'm gonna read something to people here, which is something I shared earlier, I think, with Shadrick and certain people as well. And that's got to do with the freedom of the Israelites when they got their freedom and they were now liberated from Egypt, from slavery, the very slavery they cried day and night to be freed from. What did that amount to for them? And if you go to the book of Exodus 14, the two books that you'll see this from is Exodus 14 and Numbers 14. And I think it's Exodus 14, you see, Exodus 14, you see a scripture that says this, Exodus 14, 11 to 12. It said, where the children of Israel are now facing Pharaoh. Pharaoh is coming for them, and he's coming to kill them. And they're stuck at the Red Sea. They look to Moses and they said, didn't we tell you this would happen? While we were in Egypt, we said, leave us alone. Let us be slaves to the Egyptians. It is better to be a slave in Egypt than to be a corpse in the wilderness. Think about that. They'd rather live enslaved than die, because now difficulty started to arise. Then another verse says this. This is Numbers 14, verse 3 to 4. When faced with the challenge of the promised land and the giants that they had to face, they said, why is the Lord taking us into a country to only have us die in battle? Our wives and our little ones will be carried off as plunder. Wouldn't it be better to return to Egypt? So they plotted amongst themselves, let us choose new leaders and go back to Egypt. What happens when a group of people are visionless in their freedom? They return to slavery. They return to what they know. They go back to the things they know. Absent of a vision which takes you to where you want to go, you return to what you know. And if what you know is colonization, that the British are the ones who have businesses, that the British are the ones with money, well, if you need businesses and money, who will you go to? Britain. Come here, bring us money. Come here, bring your businesses. That's what we'll do. You will automatically do that. And this is not a dig at any one administration. We have been doing this for 30 years as a country. 30 years plus. We have given all the power to the people who we chased out. And this is why Simon Mwanawasa has the famous words where he says, if we do not handle our freedom correctly, the colonizers will return as investors. Those were old words that have been quoted to him. And if you think about it very carefully, have they not come back? The very same people who you complained were your colonizers have returned to own most of your stock market. They returned. They own most of you. They own the majority of you. They're the biggest owners of government debt. They own the majority of your economy. They own almost every critical sector. Your shopping sector is controlled by them. Your mining sector is controlled by them. Your banking sector is controlled by them. Your education sector is funded by their taxes. Your health sector is funded by their taxes. They control each part of your life as you speak right now, as you see. When one of the reasons our minister will say, no, we can't chase the mines, is because he's trying to get tax money to fund hospitals. Why? Because he's failed to run taxes. We have, not him exactly, but I mean, the system has failed to run taxes for hospitals in this country from the normal activities of the Zambian people. They failed to do that. So the reality, Shadrick, is when people have got a visionless freedom, they go back to what they know. They sell themselves, like you talked about, people selling their freedom for kwachas. And my biggest concern, I think, with us as a people is that we should start looking at what is the vision for this country, what is the vision for our lives, because your freedom will be squandered and you'll go back to what you know if you don't have anywhere to go. And I want to repeat that statement. If you don't have anywhere to go, you will return to what you know, be it good or bad. You will return to it. So have somewhere to go so that your freedom and the choices, like Shadrick was pointing at, your choices give you the path to meaning, that you can now go towards what means something to you because you have the freedom to make the choices that you need to make in order to go in that direction. Absent of that, you'll just say, let's go back to these people. And you know, one of the saddest things, I'll tell you why this is extremely important, is because the what's it called? There's an old video of President Mwanawasa where he said something very important to the people of this country. He said, and he was talking about Zimbabwe. He was saying one of the problems with Zimbabwe, he said, is the people had independence, but they do not have the fruits of independence. And that's what led to the Zimbabweans being so frustrated that they went into the streets and they started grabbing land from people, because they had independence with no fruits of independence. And what you're trying to cure here is that if you want the fruits of independence, you need a vision. Why does China, who got their freedom just 15 years before Zambia? China is not that old, people. Zambia is 58 years old. China is only 14 years older than that. In terms of the China we know today, the Communist Party China, they're only 14 years older than us. The rest of the society, Singapore, all these people, they're the same age as Zambia. But why are they so far ahead? Because they had a vision for their country. China says we want to be number one. Singapore wanted to be an industrial marvel. They looked at Zambia and they said, wow, we can produce things for ourselves. Let's go back and just pool our resources and make things ourselves. The countries you're seeing, Taiwan, all these things, these are vision-driven countries. They had a visual for what they wanted to achieve. Africans just wanted to get out of colonization. Absent of that, we didn't know what we were going to do afterwards. Now that we got our freedom, what next? We haven't answered that question. What is the picture of the Zambia we want to build? That entrepreneurs are then going to contribute to building businesses that will then support that. What is the visual? Not these sustainable development goals that the United Nations keeps giving us that we just regurgitate all the time. I'm talking about an actual heartfelt vision that we need. I gave the president props on one speech where he said, Zambia, and I don't know if he said it by mistake. I don't know if it was by meaning, but he said, I hope to see Zambia. He says, I want one day that Zambia should be a marvel of green industrialism. He said those words.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a vision. Why have we not caught on to this? Why have we not sent it to people and say, that's our vision? Build your businesses around this vision. Let's build our structure as a country. Let's build it around becoming the green industrialism. Let's build this. Let's move forward this way. Because if we do, then all of our investment decisions, all of our business decisions, all of our everything is based on that. So I think Shadrick will play the clip of President Mwanawasa. Yeah, just play it so that people can understand. It's a very short one. Play it, yeah. I think you had it, Shadrick, but you took it away. Yeah, I'm saying
I took it away?
Yeah. So you have to put it back on. So you just share it again so that people can see it. But it's a very simple clip where he it's a very short part, but the words are extremely important. So if you want, the question I keep asking us is, why as Africans do we have a fruitless independence? Why do we have this tree of independence sitting amongst us, but we can't taste the fruits of it? Yeah, press play. Yeah, no one can hear it, unfortunately. So yeah, you'll see it. I think we'll see it another day. I think we can just leave it for now. I think we're having a problem with the sound of it. So the point I wanted everyone to understand is we should avoid having a fruitless independence. And the way to you end up having a fruitless independence, why I read those scriptures to you in the Bible, is that because we don't know where we want to go and what we want to achieve and what direction we'd like to take this country, I want to see this country become prosperous. So therefore, that's my fruits of my freedom, that I'm giving my life and everything to see the people of this country build their prosperity through their savings and entrepreneurship. So I'm here on a Sunday doing a show called Enterprise Corner instead of living La Vida with the rest of people, okay? Because I want to see the entrepreneurs of this country pushing themselves. I want to see the people, the savers and investors, build the wealth that gives them the freedom to pursue a meaningful existence, to pass on a wonderful legacy, and to groom children who will give continuity towards their purpose. That's what I want to see as a society. So that's what's driving me to work the hours I do, to do what I do. And my freedom as an individual is specifically to give to that. What are our people giving towards? Or are we just consuming? Is freedom just about consuming? And that's why I say, if you think about that statement, I think it's the best, even though he was talking about Zimbabwe. And one of the saddest videos I saw, Shadrick, was after the Zimbabweans kicked the white people off the farm, they failed to run those farms. Then there's this video of this white guy coming back onto a farm, the farm he was kicked off on. And the workers were carrying him like he was God. You know, the way we used to carry those colonialists. Yes, because they were visionless about their freedom. What can you do if you have no vision for your freedom, but return to the very thing you ran away from? So I'll give that to you, Shadrick. What are the dangers of having a visionless freedom as a country for us to pursue the meaning we're looking for?
It's the exact thing just talked about in the Bible. It said when a blind man is leading another blind man, they will find themselves in a ditch. that their end is imminent. It's like I usually liken this one to a dad who does not invest for his family. There's no difference between him and that man who drinks alcohol without food. The end is obvious. They have the same end. The end is very obvious. So visionless freedom is actually even more dangerous. Partly because it can land you into a lot of problems than you actually expected. You're even better off being in slavery than having the freedom without vision. Right? It's the same thing I always say. The Bible is a dangerous weapon in the hands of an amateur, partly because it can be used to mislead a lot of people. Right?
Has been.
And it has been used, and we have seen that it's the same effect on freedom. Freedom is a dangerous thing on somebody with no vision. It's extremely dangerous, and we have seen that ourselves in our lifetime. How freedom has been used as a tool to destroy countless lives. So I think that there's a danger to having freedom and having no vision. So as a people, we need to embrace the ability to begin to make up visions. And we have seen politicians come on board and say, "What, I have no vision." We clap, we say, "Yes, it's honest." But I think that's
we voted twice. No. This one I've got beef with. You people voted twice for a man who stood in front of you and said, "I have no vision." Twice, not once, twice. That's a problem. That speaks a lot to us as
Let's leave the man alone. Come on. Leave him. Let him rest. Let him rest. He's okay. Let him rest. So what we are saying, guys, is that how long do we have, Munimba? Because I have a video I made for financial freedom, and I wanted to make it like a quiz. I wanted to play it for some people, and then ask them to tell me what they've learned. I want to be able to, because it's freedom, of course. I want to send some freedom talk to some people. But I'm not sure how many minutes we have.
No, we've only got a few. I think we just link it to your page because we need to close out now. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Good.
Yeah. So I think we can. No, I'm saying you can make your comments if any.
Yes.
Or
yes,
let me
yes.
just make your comments. Yeah.
So I think, guys, having freedom with no vision is extremely dangerous. It must be avoided. If you're gonna have some freedom, please have a vision. Do something with your freedom. All right. Because if you can't do something with your freedom, somebody else is gonna use you to improve their lives. That's how it works. So it's either you learn to use what you have well, otherwise others will use you to improve their life, because you can't use what you have to advantage. So others will use you to benefit themselves. That's how it works. So can we use our freedom as a people, as families, as individuals, and as a nation to our own advantage, not using our freedom to benefit others. This is what others are using us to benefit themselves because they've seen we have no vision. All right, and that is what has been making us poor and poor as the day goes by.
So and with that, I'll say, Abraham in the Bible, there was before God told him to leave his father's house. Before God sent him, gave him his independence. Because remember, Abraham was told, leave your father's house and now go and pursue. God first gave him the vision. He says, I will make you a great nation. I will bless the world through you. Through you, I will build my people. Abraham was selected first, was given a broad vision of where his life was supposed to go. Your children will be as numerous as the stars. And he had an intergenerational vision, because though God told Abraham, your children will be as numerous as the stars, it was Moses who says in Deuteronomy, for you are as numerous as the stars. You are many for me to handle. It was generations and generations later when that came to pass. So, but he had a vision that was given to him that he then pursued a mission with. So if you are given freedom with no mission, no vision, you are dead, you are self-destructive. That's the reality. That's why I always tell people, before you go on a savings journey or anything, build your vision and your mission first. So for independence, Zambia turning 58. We are 58 years old. And the reason why we have had a fruitless independence, why independence has done nothing for the poverty levels of this country, why independence has done very little for the education levels of this country, why independence hasn't improved the livelihoods of the people, is because we have partaken in a visionless independence. We just got independence. It's like giving a child a Ferrari, doesn't know what to do with it, doesn't even know how to drive it. You don't know. As a result, you just go and give it back to dad and say, Dad, go and drive this thing for me. Take me around, because I don't know. I don't even know how to drive. So we have to be enabled as people. I don't even believe the enabling environment statement, Shadrick. I believe an enabled people. I believe more in an enabled people than an enabling environment, because countries like China that have got barely any resources have built so much great wealth because they've enabled their people. They've made their people believe in themselves, and they've made their people build things. So I will say this. We need, as a country, we are 58 years old and we're where we are because we have never invested our time and our energy in visioning what is Zambia going to look like in the 100 years point. What is Zambia going to look like in the 100 years point? Please, can we start to talk about that? I always say I want 1 million millionaires in this country through productivity, through entrepreneurship and saving and investment. That's a vision I've got on my heart. That's a vision that keeps me awake. That's why me and Matthew are constantly talking. Shadrick and I do even have business calls at 11 at night sometimes. Okay? Because that's the stuff that keeps us up. Because that's what we want to see. So really, I implore this country, as we turn 58, enjoy your day. I understand it's a wonderful thing to celebrate that we have our freedom, and freedom is something to celebrate. But remember, tomorrow will come and the next day will come. What are we doing? Each of us, not our politicians. Stop talking to them about this stuff. Okay? Lead them. Lead your politicians to administer and serve you. You want them to serve you. If you want them to serve you, then lead them. Okay? So in order for us to do that as a group of people, we must have a vision. We must have a path. We must have a direction. And it starts down to the households. If you don't have a direction for yourself, how do you want to have this country to have a direction? First, sort out yourself. So 2 books, as I said, I'll say it again. The Future of the American Negro by Booker T. Washington. I'm going to put this in the comments section. While Shadrick, I think you make your comments. And also just 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I love that book because it tells you how to enable yourself to become stronger. And that's what I'd like to get. So I'm going to write here the books, The Future of the American Negro. Everyone, if you want to know a direction, a country, a people, a household should be set on, read The Future of the American Negro by Booker T. Washington. And we'll close out there. Shadrach, I think, give your remarks.
And I think, Mnyumba, you've made a very fundamental statement. An enabled people is the way to real freedom. And I just want to say that if we are going to make something good out of this freedom that we have, I think as a nation, first of all, can we stop giving handouts to people? I think that's the starting point, Mnyumba. Can we let people learn how to make a living for themselves? And I've always held this view, Mnyumba. I'm not changing my statement. I'm going to stand by my statement in strongest terms possible. I'm going to say CDF for me, Mnyumba. I have no problem with CDF, but I have a problem because CDF is given to people who are not productive. That's where I have a problem with CDF, right? Because this is not empowering people. It is actually just telling them to go and sleep, be politically aligned, and get money which you can go and spend on your girlfriend, your friends, and things like that. This is why we're having people who are in positions of power being filmed on sex tapes because they have no vision for leadership, right? A true leader with a true vision will not be found themselves in such kind of stuff. But I'm going to say this in conclusion. If we are going to make sense out of freedom, freedom must start with us, the citizens, at our homes. If you're a husband or a dad, answer this question. Is it really true that as a dad, you can go to bed and tell God that, God, I have done the best that I could for my family. I have given my wife and children freedom. I have given my wife financial freedom because even in homes, there's no financial freedom. So people that can't give their spouses financial freedom can't hold politicians to account, all right, so that we can have economic freedom. They can't because in their homes, there's no economic freedom. Wives are living like they are being colonized, right? They are okay taking pictures. Wives and husbands are okay taking pictures, Mnyumba, sharing on social media. They are okay even printing names on t-shirts for each other. I was born to love you. I was the king, the queen. But they are not okay to share their finances. It's very rare. There are very few people, even those that appear to love each other so much, they don't even know how much each other has in their bank accounts. So there's no economic freedom in homes. To start with homes, wives are free to cook the food they want to eat, but they're not free to spend the money on things they want to spend on. All right. It's the same thing with the nation. We are free to trade, but we're not free to make our own economic decisions. We are free to buy what we want to buy, but can we make our own policies? No, we are not. So as a people, can we be involved? Can we start empowering each other? Collaboration, let's work together. If you are married, work with your wife. If you have children, involve them. Involving your kids in your financial decision is a way of empowering them at a younger age. Don't think kids are young. Kids learn even before they are born. You can teach your child even before they are born. Let them be involved in how you make decisions in your home. It's gonna help you. When you are financially and economically independent in your home, it's gonna be easier for you to see how you can provide proper checks and balances on those that have the responsibility to handle your affairs. It's important. And as a nation member, can we avoid these things of FISIP, CDF, CASIP, lots of way of handing out money? Can we have a proper strategy of maybe putting up training skills? A lot of skill centers where people can go there and be taught how to do things, and then form cooperative controlled by governments themselves, right? Properly controlled cooperatives where people can go and work and produce something. If it's furniture, let them produce furniture and supply furniture. Don't give them handouts in the market. You go to market, just find them. Can you make a group? Come and get 1,000, 1,000. What is it going to do with the money? They're just going to pay rent, and the money will be gone. So can we empower? Can we not give handouts? Let's have an empowered citizens mentally with skills. If you have a skill, my friend, you're okay. Because that is your intrinsic value. Nobody's going to take away your skill from you. I have a skill. You can delete my Facebook page. I don't mind. All right? Because I have a skill that can make me money without being on Facebook. I have a skill that can make me make money standing on my own without depending on any other person. So what skill do you have? So as a people, for freedom to make sense, can we have skills? It is the skills which are going to help us to begin to participate in the economic environment, which help us to reduce prices because of enough competition. So this is 58 years old of independence. What do we have to ourselves? We can't even run Zambia properly. We can't do that. It's horrible. We can't even run important institutions properly because we lack the independence. So can we put more skills into the system? Can we empower our people with skills, not handouts? All right. And remember, if I was to just think about companies like Zambia, Zambia is doing the most. But look at how it has been neglected. We recently saw a fertilizer company from China being supported to supply tons and tons of fertilizer, neglecting our own companies. How are we going to grow economically like that? Because we are saying the Chinese guy is faster. Can't we make our own machines and make them faster? Can't we make our own plant and make it more efficient?
Were they born faster? Were the
Yeah, were
Chinese
they
born faster? They learned everything.
Yeah, so that's we really need to change our mindset, remember, if we're gonna make sense out of this freedom. Otherwise, guys, I wish you a fantastic day. If you wanna come and do family finance, feel free to contact us. If you wanna do bond education is on offer. They've started.
Right.
And next month we are starting the class for family finance. This month I was resting. I was on a holiday. We want to do consultations, but next month there'll be a class for the month of November. So you may start studying now. We are ready for our family finance and personal finance. So guys, thank you so very much for joining us. I wish you a fantastic day. Nyumba, up to you.
Just two things, people. If you instead of saying the system has to work, let me give you something very simple. Mark Cuban gives two very important rules for building wealth. Because if we build our own wealth, we'll build independence. The simple thing I can tell you is countries that have millionaires are very strong. Countries that have high concentrations of millionaires have got very strong economic independence and economic freedom. Be it Switzerland, be it America, be it even Egypt. Egypt is one of the strongest millionaire productive nations. China, obviously, is the fastest millionaire producing nations. If you want your economic independence, then you're going to have to make sure that you learn how to produce wealth. Mark Cuban simply says, find something that you are good at and become great at it. So I would advise you read a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins, where he actually talks about companies that went from good to great and what are the 5 principles that they utilize. Good to Great by Jim Collins. 2, he says you have to learn the skill of sales. Zambians have to learn how to become good at things, to find good things that they can become great at, go from good to great, become good at selling that, which you can now take from good to great, build companies around that you are good to great at, and then you are selling. And then we're on our way to building wealth, economic freedom, and we're going to actually have independence. And I pray that in 20 years' time, or 10 years, 20, 10, 20, 30 years' time, we can stand back here, Shadrick, and say, we finally overcame this problem of being politically liberated, but economically enslaved to a system that's just not working for us. So I hope that people, you get this message. I know there's a few of you. I get it. We're not social media celebrities twerking and stuff like that. So can't get 1,000 views, but just the people who are here are more than enough, to start a revolution. And that's the revolution that we're looking for, an entrepreneurship revolution.
That's what the Enterprise Corner was built on. We are not for everyone, Mnyumba. That's just the fact.
Yeah, but those who are here, get those books into your mind. Start the change. Yeah. Change starts with just few people. Remember, Jesus started with 12 people. Now there's 2 billion people who are under him. So you know what? We start with the groups that are here. So we thank all of you. We wish you all a wonderful Independence Day. And we hope that you now start to look at a vision-built independence, and let's eat the fruits of independence, not just to have a tree with no fruits in it. Have a wonderful day, people.